Nancy Nystrom, founder of Casa Hogar. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm sitting right here by this beautiful pool and bay and palm trees. I'm just doing fantastic, Kevin.
Well, I'm trying to have as nice a background as yours, but obviously mine is not real, but um, everything
You're,
looks great.
I'm the real thing, real deal, and you're the fraud. Is that
That's
what we're going?
exactly. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad we have such a really good background because today I wanted to talk to you about a pretty serious topic. So maybe having the nice background will, kind of offset the topic, but so you founded Casa Hogar Los Angelitos 30 years ago, and I know that obviously the whole project is rescuing children that have been abused, abandoned, neglected. But I have a kind of a current topic question for you. Have you noticed a change in things as far as the child trafficking, the sex trafficking in recent years with some of the kids that have maybe come into Casa Hogar Los Angelitos? Or is it
Wow,
the same that
Kevin.
it used to be?
Yeah, no, when we first began this project, there were kids on the street, there were kids sleeping under boats, there were kids doing all kinds of different things. And I think making the city aware, and doing something proactive ourselves
Uh-huh.
started changing the face of things. We still have trafficking here, but the kids that come into the Casa Hogar, the kids that are part of our ballet, they are they learn self-confidence, they learn uh to uh, they are not victims. They are not victims. And most of the trafficking is done with kids or people that appear to be victims or appear to be have low self-esteem or appear to be desperate or hungry or this
Mm.
kind of thing. And what we try to do, and the difference that I've seen is there is less um, they're still here. It's still here, and it's something that we're dealing with and trying to to address
Mhm.
in the things that we do, the programs we have, and it's something that I feel like is probably very underplayed. Very the people just don't talk about it. It's a subject that people try not to talk about.
Hmm.
Even for me, it could be a little dangerous talking about it because one of the things you don't want to do is stir up uh, a group of people that might think that you are damaging their income,
Yeah, their business,
their
right?
business. Yeah, their business. Yeah. But yes, I've seen a tremendous change. And I've been, when I first started this, I was not aware of all the stuff that was going on. I was not really aware of the problems. And, I would see kids on the street and they would be washing windshields and they would be begging or and I really, you know, as a tourist, you don't think very much about that. You think, oh, what a cute look at that cute little boy, or oh, I wonder how he is or what his background is, but you don't really get into it. And then when I began this project, I really began to see things that were going on that just would just, breaks your heart, just breaks
Hmm.
your heart.
Yeah.
So
Have you received any children recently that maybe have come from the grips of a child trafficking situation?
we've received kids recently that are victims of crime and some that have been abused and molested, some that have been caught in circumstances that were on the edge of perhaps being um, laundered or victimized, from trafficking. And it's one of those things that if you can catch it in time, and we have the district attorney's office sending children to us, we receive children from outside this community as well. And kids that have been on the street or they just come on the street or they've lost their parents or they've been abandoned. These are the kids that are vulnerable. These
Right,
are the kids that are would be easy to traffic.
right.
And and we've had over the years, we've had, oh, you ask about recently, we've had probably I'd say half a dozen kids this past year that came in that would have been victims of trafficking.
Okay. Wow.
So
So when these kids are coming into you, is the interview process, the intake pretty extensive? Because I'm sure you'd want to find out these kids, what their ties are, because if you're taking a kid off the street that somebody else wants. I mean, isn't that a whole other risk and kind of element to deal with?
Yeah, and we have to be very careful about that. That's why we don't publicize faces or names or full names, because there might be somebody still looking for that or be angry about that, or some family member that wants to
Yeah.
grab that child. Um, yes, it's very tricky. They Most of the kids come in now from the what we call the Procuraduría's office, which is basically the district attorney's
Uh-huh.
office and the child protection agency down here. Some come in from DEEF, which is another social service agency. They first find the children, and they find them in cemeteries. We have two little girls that came in. They were living in a cemetery just outside of town. We've had them come in living in the garbage dump. We have them come in that are just wandering the street. We had a 3-year-old, she wasn't even 3 years old, little girl that the police brought to us that was walking the street. And, I mean, you're talking a child that's not even 3 years old, and she's out in the street, and no one knew who she was. She didn't know her name. She didn't know anything. They picked her up and brought her to us. And we didn't discover, probably for a good 6 months to a year, that she had escaped. Her mother and her baby brother were murdered, and she had somehow escaped that
Oh
and
my
was walking the street.
gosh.
So, it's that kind of thing. So we have to be very careful
Yeah.
about what we do. They investigate. We also have a social worker. We investigate and make sure that we try to make sure that these people that are looking for them, or that might be looking to murder the whole
Yeah.
family, don't know where those children are. We've had to send
Wow.
children to another location up north. We had two little girls, and I'm not going to tell you the name of the family that they came out of, but
Uh-huh.
it was a cartel family. And it was, we didn't realize it when they were brought to us, until a man came to our door, and to the Casa Hogar door, and said, you have so and so and so and so here, right? And well, we don't always acknowledge. And he said, I know they're here, and
Mm.
I can tell you, if I can find out, so can the people that are looking to destroy the entire family, and they're part of it. So if they find these girls, they will come in, and they don't care who else they murder. So that's the kind of thing that we have to think about. So what we did, we made arrangements to send these two girls to a Casa Hogar children's home that was in a completely different part of Mexico,
Yeah.
where hopefully, they would be able to live their life without
Yeah.
that kind of
Wow.
fear. So it goes on, and we have to be very careful. We've had some children in that we've had from maybe the time that they were 4 or 5 years old, and no parents, abandoned. They were supposedly orphaned,
Hmm.
and we get them to a point, we educate them, we get their everything that they need. They're in school, they're progressing, and then they get to be about 10 or 11 or 12 years old, and someone comes along and says, I am an uncle, and I want to adopt my, this child. Well, this uncle might be somebody from, you know north of in the northern part of Mexico or someplace else. There's no way that this person is really looking to
Yeah.
um, adopt. The other thing that happens is that sometimes people come in from other countries, from other places to adopt. This happens in other countries, not just in Mexico, and they go through an official adoption, but they're not. And so it's all legal. They take the child back, but it really was not a legitimate
Yeah.
adoption. But because it's legal, all kinds of ways that people
Yeah.
do this kind of
Well,
thing. Dirty
now,
business.
yeah, man. Well, so now where you guys are located in Manzanillo, Mexico, I don't know. Do you have any stats? I had heard something that it's kind of a hotbed for children who are abused, something to do with the port, and maybe are there any statistics that support Manzanillo as being kind of a hotbed for some of the things we're talking about?
Well, yeah. First of all, there's two or three major cartels and that are in this area, and they kind of are vying. The port is the second largest port on the Pacific.
Okay.
And Kevin, I have to be kind of careful what I say, so don't make me say something that will get me in big trouble or get,
Yeah.
be put away. But the issue of the port is that it is a big, big, big business, and it's because it is a major port. It brings in um, prostitution, encourages prostitution, and drugs, all crime, all of this activity, and cartels that want to control or pretty much killing each other so that one of them can gain control.
Right.
Now, this does not affect, or it doesn't seem to affect, like the normal person living here.
Hmm.
It's within the crime community that this is happening. And right now, yeah, Manzanillo is considered a hotbed for murder and a number one place um, for this kind of crime because of that.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't want to say tourism is still active here. People come down, and pretty much hands are off of tourists. It's just within the community that there
Right.
is the problem, within the cartel community.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. Can you
Yeah,
maybe give
you're
us,
making me a little nervous actually
yeah.
talking about all of
And
this.
yeah, we want to make sure that, safety is the most important thing with all of this, but can you maybe share maybe an uplifting success story of a child who came in from the kind of background that we're talking about and maybe a little bit about their journey and what they're doing now?
Well, so I would say that if we get a family of five in, 3 to 4 of those children will become success stories. And we do get families in groups sometimes. But going back to Brenda Leppy, and this family because she was one of the early part of a family that came in about 19 about 2001, and they were a poor family, came in from Tecoman, and they were all living in this house that was like just a 1 bedroom or 2 room house. There were about 14 people living in there. They were on the beach, and there was extreme poverty. That's one example of a family that came in and went from extreme poverty to now 4 of those 5 kids have secondary education, college education. One of them is a dentist. One of them has a degree in nutrition. Another has a degree in emergency EMTs. Another one has a degree in business administration.
Wow.
And out of those 5, you see these that come in because of the kind of program that we have and the security we give them, the opportunities we give them. They have the opportunities to succeed. We've had others, some of the ones that, like the little girl that I was just talking about,
Yeah.
that was there. And I don't want to say names, but I mean, she is growing up, and she's active in school. She's making great grades. She's going to do fantastic. She's part of many of our programs that we have, and just a dynamite little girl. And here's one. I mean, she could have been murdered. She would have been murdered. And sadly, many of our children that we have would either be dead, in prostitution, on the street, or, and
Right.
just continuing with that
Yeah.
cycle, abuse and poverty.
Well, you
So
said something the other day that was profound. And at the time that you said it, it didn't really sink in. But as a couple days have gone on, it's really, really sunk in. And you said, in order to change the world, you need to start with changing a world, meaning you
yes,
change one child's life and you're
yes,
changing the world. And for
that's right.
some reason, it really sunk in. And I just love that. Will you talk a little bit about that statement? And is that a Nancy original, or did you hear that somewhere?
No, well, all of the above, yes. But I've read it, throughout the years. There have been places, I think, in the Talmud that, and in various different writings, Saint Teresa and different people have said a child is a world in itself. And
Yeah.
if you change that child, you are changing a world, and you really don't know what that child might be capable of doing. And you don't know the effect that that child might have on many thousands of others. If I want to go back to, this is more of it's a church thing that I read the story about Billy Sunday. Billy Sunday was not a Christian. He had decided one night, he was a teenager, and he had decided to go to church. It was a snowstorm, and they were going to close the church service, and they were going to, because it was such a bad storm, and the people there said, well, we don't want to go and we don't want to get out in this storm. But one man decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and have this service. Billy Sunday was one of the few people that went that Wednesday night. His life changed. He heard the message. His life changed. And he went on. This is one child. He went on to become one of the biggest evangelists that we had in that time frame that he
Wow.
was, that he lived in. So you never know.
Yeah.
And we have kids that have come in that I think, they're in the military. They're fine. They have their morality. They can change the world. They could become president of Mexico. They can
Yeah.
become leaders
Right.
in the world. And when too many people, in my opinion, look at children like they have very little value.
Yeah.
Yet that child is our future. That
Yeah.
child is the future of the world. These children that we're working with are the future of Mexico and the future of their neighbors,
Right.
because these children are not going to be going across the border illegally. These children will be able to have a career. They'll be able to have a job. They will be able to do something with their lives to
Yeah.
help to change the world. So
Yeah.
every child we work with, we
Yes.
look at them like that. This child is a world. It's a
Yeah.
whole, we don't know.
Well, I just talked to a young lady the other day. For those of you that don't know, I spent about 10 years bringing groups of American female athletes to Casa Hogar Los Angelitos, and we would play with the kids and we would kind of hear their stories and we would learn about their programs, and then I would do some leadership training that Nancy helped me develop to make an impact on these young ladies' lives. And Nancy, just the other day, I was talking to a girl who came on the trip twice, and one of the things that made her unique is she was the only kid the entire time I did those trips where her parents actually made her earn the money to go on the trips. So she was organizing car washes and she was, pet sitting and doing all these different things to come on these trips. Well, I talked to her the other day and she now has a thriving couples therapy practice in Kansas. And she had said that it was because of the trip to Casa Hogar Los Angelitos that she decided she wanted to go into mental health and ultimately became a therapist. So
Yeah,
there's a world in the United States that was changed from Casa Hogar Project. And think of the spider web of all the lives that she's affecting now.
right. That's right.
So,
And you don't know. We make judgments, but we really don't know the influence that we might have on one life and the influence that life might
yeah.
have on thousands and thousands of other
Yeah.
lives.
Yep. You just
So
never know. In fact,
no,
ironically, well, I don't believe in, well, I don't know. Let's just put it this way that I got a text message last night that I think was a divine inspiration for me. It was a young man that I hadn't talked to in probably almost 10, no, it's maybe 8 to 10 years. And he was telling me what an impact I made in his life. And I don't even remember like making an effort to try to make an impact in his life, but I had said a few things to him that he told me radically changed the course of his life. So you really never know
no, you don't.
what
You
world
don't.
you're going to change.
There was another young man that I didn't even remember doing this, that I helped in some way. It was a very small way, but I paid attention to him in front of other people. I kind of brought him in and said, well, look at this young man and what he's doing. And that was it. I mean, I didn't do anything more, but later, years later, he came back and he said, I will always remember that because you made me feel so good. And for that, it changed my life. You know,
Yeah,
you don't
you don't
know.
know.
You don't know. When I was growing up, and I think about this sometimes now with our children, when I was growing up, I had red hair and freckles and I felt, and white, very pasty white. And I just felt very ugly, not cute, like,
Big
oh,
feet.
cute little redhead. Yeah, whatever. And one day, several things happened to me. There were several women in my life in the church that I was going to that would always compliment me somehow or other and say, "Oh, you look so pretty today," even though I didn't feel like I did. But that just did something for me. And then one day, this one man was we were having coffee, my mother, and I was 12 years old, and some of my family, and he was looking at me. And I'm telling you, I was, pasty, freckles, stringy hair, whatever it was. And he was looking at me and he said, "Someday, Nancy, you're going to be a good looking woman." And I could have taken that two ways. I could have taken it like, well, that means I'm not good looking now, which I didn't think I was. But I took it and like something to look forward to. Okay, maybe someday. But and those are simple things. They're not the inspiring things, but just a word that we say
Yeah.
to someone can make all the difference. I had a girl yesterday in the grocery store that um, came up to me, and she was, working there in the grocery store, and she came up and she said, "Mama Nancy," and she hugged. Oh, makes me want to cry. And she hugged me, and it took me a second to realize who she was. So she had the protection mask and the hat on and the uniform. But then I realized, and she was just so. It just means so much. They come back and they say things like, "You inspired me. You are the reason that I was able to continue." And it's not me. It's the fact that we care about the children,
Yeah.
and they sense that, and then they care about each other, and that spreads. And that's a movement, just to care about one
Yeah.
another, to love one another, to help one another, instead
Right.
of putting people down, instead of you know saying, "Oh, I don't like the way you look today," or whatever things that kids say. A lot of
Yeah.
times in the schools, they're very,
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very ugly. But our kids, I think, just the very fact that they come from such a very difficult place. Many of them had no food to eat, living on the street, no education, and then they come in, they get receive security, they have love, they learn that they have value, and they have an opportunity to learn,
Mhm.
to have education. And those things right there turns them into a blossom. They come in like a wilted weed, honestly, and I hate to say that, but some of them look really, really bad, and nutrition, they have had no nutrition, and they're skinny, and maybe their face and hair, they have lice. And then after a little bit of time with those four ingredients, and beginning first with the love, the security, feeling that they have value, and then to have the opportunity for education, they blossom. They just blossom. And all of our children, you look at them and they're all beautiful. They're all just beautiful.
Well, and it's not an accident. I know that Casa Hogar Los Angelitos is very intentional with your programs. There's the healing journey. You guys just do so many things, the expressive arts, to help these kids rehabilitate. But I think the underlying thing is the love. And one of the things I saw you do one day that made a big impact on me is we were in one of the rural villages. And one of the things that I enjoy about my trips to Casa Hogar is even though Casa Hogar is a children's home orphanage, you guys still give to the community. So we
Yeah.
were on a trip one day into a rural village and we were giving out, I think, the basic cooking necessities. And a little girl came running up to you and she was very dirty and very disheveled. And I literally saw lice in her hair. And she came up to you and you didn't even hesitate. You just grabbed her and you hugged her and you smiled. And I remember standing there feeling the tears just welling up in my eyes that I could not believe the amount of love that you were showing a child right there that most people would have been like, "Hey, get away, little girl."
And a lot of people did. It was just like, we had a doctor that went down with us, and or came down and part of one group, and we went to this one of these outlying communities, and they don't have a way to take a bath in the river, or or in in a bucket or something like that. And the lice is just like, I mean, it is, their hair is almost white because it's so full of lice, and
Yes.
except and that kind of thing. And this doctor went there, and I did the same thing, because I do not want any child to feel like they are rejected for any
Yeah.
reason. And this doctor was like, "Oh," and he kind of backed off, and he's kind of like, I could see him actually backing,
Yes.
going backwards to get away.
Oh,
And we had another doctor, local doctor, a Mexican doctor, that we took out one time, because there was a girl in this group that where we were visiting, that had there was two of them. There was one that was pregnant, and it was an incestuous situation, and we were wanted a doctor to, to take a look at her. And then another one that had a leg that was broken and they didn't do anything about it. And you could see the bone was actually
Oh
kind
my
of sticking
gosh.
out of the leg.
Oh,
And so we took a doctor out with us on one of these trips, and it wasn't Dr. Geber, by the way. And this doctor would not get out of the car. He would not get out of the car. And it was like, what's the deal? And he said, I've never seen anything like this before, and I do not want to look at this. And that's
whoa.
what people do, Kevin. That is exactly what people do. They don't want to see it. And in my new book, Am I Christian Enough? One of the things that I talk about is the difference between pity and compassion, because a lot of us feel sorry. That's what I did when I was, early on, when I see the kids and I think, oh, poor little thing, I'm going to give them a cookie, or I'm going to, give them 20 pesos or 10, whatever, or a candy bar or something. And I felt good about it. That's pity. Compassion is when you see something and you really see it and you feel that and you must do something. You
Mm,
must do something about it. And most of us do not have that passion. And passion requires a commitment. Compassion requires not only a commitment, but it requires, sometimes it's very hard, it's very difficult,
mhm.
and it's painful. I've had people say, well, I don't want to go down. I don't want to go down to the Casa Hogar because I don't want to see all those children in need. They don't want to be touched. They don't want to feel that compassion, because if they feel that compassion, that means they're probably going to feel like they have to do something. They don't want to feel guilty because they're not
Right.
doing anything.
Well,
So,
that's one way to protect yourself is just don't get involved.
oh, don't look.
But but I can tell you from personal experience, that getting involved at Casa Hogar was probably one of the single most important things I've done in my entire life. Here we are 30 years later, 27 years later for me, still rescuing children and talking about this. And I really appreciate you taking the time today. And I really appreciate the fact that you did not let me get you prepared today. So I really think you
Thank you
were,
so much, Kevin. I mean,
well,
I'm stumbling. I'm
from
saying,
no, well, from knowing you all these years, you're at your best when you don't know what's coming. So I really look
Uh-oh.
forward to future podcasts when I can take these topics and just get you right on the spot. So thank you today for just doing what you do in the programming and allowing me to hit you up from a spontaneous standpoint today.
Oh, Kevin, thank you. I love you. You just have such a wonderful heart, and the vision. I love talking with you anyway. So I just hope I don't lose my ability um to whatever it is that I do when I talk
Yeah,
to you.
if you don't know what it is, I'm pretty sure you're not
I,
going to
I
lose
don't know
it.
what it
So I
is.
think you're good.
Anyway,
All
I
right,
love it.
Nancy. Well, we will look forward to talking to you next time.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care.
All right, you too.